Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AMA between Near Insider and CertiK today. And I'm Peter. I'm really honored to host this AMA today. And this AMA is brought to you by Near Insider. Our team updates the fastest and hottest new on-chain analysis and data about the Near ecosystem. We also regularly host AMAs so the audience can know more about the potential projects that are being deployed on the Near network. So for the topic today, we're gonna discuss CertiK, which is the leading security-focused ranking platform to analyze and monitor blockchain protocols and DeFi projects. Joining me today is the social media manager of CertiK, Chase Young. So Chase, can you briefly introduce yourself and your team?
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Chase. I'm the social media manager here at CertiK. For those who aren't familiar, we are the leading Web3 blockchain security company. We were started in 2017 by our two co-founders who are professors of cybersecurity at Yale and Columbia. And we have the mission of securing the Web3 world, which is definitely a tall task, but we're doing what we can on our end to make that possible.
Thank you, Chase. It's nice to know more about you and CertiK. Okay, so let's begin with the first question. What are some of the ecosystem that you commonly work with?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we work with all ecosystems. Previously, we've been partnered with Binance and Polygon, and that's been kind of our main domain. But with the team of engineers that we have, we have engineers that their expertise ranges through all the different programming languages. So luckily, we can kind of cover all ecosystems. I mean, that includes Near, Avalanche, Cosmos, Algorand. The list goes on and on. So it's kind of a common, not misconception, but we've worked with projects in the past who weren't aware that we worked with Algorand, for example, or Near. And we're trying to get that word out there that we're not just working with BSC projects or Polygon. We will take on any client because, I mean, everybody needs security. It affects users everywhere, so we don't want to limit it just to certain ecosystems. So that's just something we've been trying to get out there messaging-wise, is that we're happy to work with any different project, any different programming language, and yeah.
Thank you. That was interesting. And as I have researched, CertiK platform has something called security leaderboards. So what is security leaderboard?
Yeah, so it's a great tool for users, in my opinion. If you head to CertiK.com, there's a list of all the projects that we've audited or done KYC for, or any project that is a client of ours that we've worked with. They get listed on the security leaderboard, and it's sort of a ranking platform. So it provides investors with the data they need to. I look at it as a one-stop shop for security research. You can go on there and find audit reports, guided information, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, like, so any project we've worked with, they're listed on there, and part of our thing is to be very transparent with the community and show everything that we find in an audit report and everything the client resolved or they didn't. We always try to be as transparent as possible and show that to the users. So, and often we'll see something we've seen lately is a lot of projects claiming to have a CertiK audit, but end up being not true, and they're misleading their investors. So we always recommend users to kind of go there first and double check. So if you're on a project's website and they say CertiK audited or have our logo, always head to the security leaderboard and double check, because it's just something we've seen more and more where users or projects are lying to users about being audited. So we have that platform where users can go and it ranks all the different projects we've audited. It's basically a ranking. So like on the top, like the front page, you can see the most secure ones. You can filter by ecosystem, GameFi, like different industries, GameFi, play to earn, that kind of thing. So it's just a place for users to go do security research and verify audit results.
Thank you. Uh, that was very cool. Uh, I assume that CertiK is moving towards becoming a one-stop shop for all things Web3 security. Can you tell us about what other security products and services CertiK has built?
Yeah, so CertiK is mainly known for our audits, I think. I mean, that's really our bread and butter and what most people use us for, most people know us for. But, I mean, as Web3 and crypto kind of keeps evolving, there are needs for other security services. So, for example, we've recently came out with KYC this year, which is one of our newer services, because I mean, especially on my end on social media and marketing, we see a ton of different rug pulls, scams, and that kind of thing. So to combat this, we've introduced our KYC services, which it kind of forces project owners to have some skin in the game and be held responsible. Our KYC has about a 100-point checklist that we go through with different projects. So it's not just a typical ID check that you see from other services. It's kind of it's a deep dive into the project team, not just one or two people, but anybody who's heavily involved with the project. We do live video calls, background checks, on-chain investigations on wallets, and that kind of stuff. And we've developed a team of ex-law enforcement and military intelligence people. So we really do have a very good team doing these background investigations. And so anytime you see a project that has CertiK's KYC, it gives users another sense of security because, I mean, we recently had a project that did KYC, Zoro Inu, and they ended up rug pulling their investors. So we do share that information with law enforcement and make sure those projects are held accountable because as we've seen over and over, the scams in this space is kind of getting, I don't know if it's the bear market or what, but it really brings out the worst in people, I guess. So in my opinion, in order for adoption and more trust in the ecosystem, we need to have these bad actors held accountable. And our KYC service is one way that we're working on doing that. And then we also have Skynet, which is essentially a 24/7 security monitoring system for smart contracts. So the best way to think of it is to think of an audit as a snapshot in time, but then whereas Skynet is constantly running and monitoring the smart contracts in the background. And then with Skynet, projects get a trust score, which can be found on the security leaderboard. And that's just basically a weighted index of signals that we've created at CertiK. So it gives users a good idea of the security level of a project. So that's ranked, that's a 0 to 100 ranking. And obviously the higher the score, the more secure a project is. So you can find out more about that and see different security scores on CertiK.com. But then we have a few more. We also just introduced our Web3 bug bounty platform. It is the only bug bounty platform providing fully managed end-to-end support with 0% fee on bounty payouts. So projects can use that to kind of use CertiK's ethical hackers to find vulnerabilities or anything, anywhere a project can get exploited before it's done by a non-ethical hacker and a project gets hacked. But we have a few more services, but all that can be found on CertiK.com. Won't take up any more time talking about those.
Okay, thank you. And since CertiK works in the audit field, can you tell us about why do so many protocols continue to get exploited despite passing rigorous audits?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something we often hear or see, and it's a very common misconception that we want to get the message out there that, for one, I mean, I don't know about competitors, but at CertiK, we do not offer pass or fails on audits. That's something users typically say that I see often. It's like, oh, they passed a CertiK audit, but we don't do that. We find vulnerabilities in the code and give the project recommendations on how to solve them. But unfortunately, we can't force a project to fix any of the problems we solve or we find. So that's why it's very important for users to read audit reports and kind of get an understanding of what was found, what the project fixed, and what they didn't. Because as I mentioned earlier, we're big on transparency. And anything we find in an audit, we share openly with the community, with users. And it's important not to just take the project's word for it. It's like, oh yeah, we did a CertiK audit, all's good. You have to make sure you go and at least check out the high level, see how many vulnerabilities were found, what they alleviated, and what they didn't. Because often, I mean, if you see that a project gets hacked or exploited after an audit, typically it's either that they didn't alleviate or like fix the problems that we found. A number of projects do that for a number of reasons. It could be for a number of things, but that's a common thing that we see is when a project does get exploited and it ends up being a part of the code that we found a vulnerability in, but they just didn't want to fix at that time. And then another important thing to note is that audit companies can only audit the contracts that are sent to us. So, for example, if a project has an important vault contract that they didn't send to us and we didn't audit and that gets exploited, people automatically blame the audit company or whoever for saying that we audited it and it still got exploited. So it's very important to check which contracts are audited because, I mean, for us, we can't just go in and audit whatever we want about a project. We can only audit what they send to us.
Really nice. Oh, and by the way, where can we find out more about you guys?
Yeah, so we have a few different platforms for users. CertiK.com is kind of the go-to. That's where you can find the security leaderboard, as I mentioned earlier, with all the different projects that we've audited or worked with. You can check out audit reports, all that stuff. And then we also have a ton of blogs on there. Anything from general crypto knowledge to kind of tips and tricks to stay safe in the space. For example, we have blogs on the top scams that we've seen, what users can do to protect themselves, red flags to look out for in projects, and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have Twitter, of course, which we're all on, where we have a few different Twitters. One is CertiK Alert, where we kind of put out real-time exploits and scams and stuff. So it's kind of our way of being there for users as fast as possible and putting out. So, for example, if we see a project using a fake audit report from CertiK, we send that out. If we see a sketchy project that we think is likely to be a scam, we send that out. Any hacks or rug pulls or anything like that, we try to notify the community as soon as possible so users can kind of try to stay ahead of it. But and then we also have Discord. That's one of our newer platforms that we've started out with, and that's a good place to kind of get more info on crypto in general, and then any one-on-one help you need. So like we have different topics in there week to week, such as which wallets are the safest to use, which exchanges do you like the most, and that kind of stuff. It's kind of just a place for like-minded people to get together and have conversations about cool stuff, and then also have that technical support from CertiK for a place to be able to ask security questions and get answers whenever you need them.
Okay, thank you. I think that we all have know the basic features of CertiK, so I'm gonna go through some questions from the community, okay? And the first one is, what tools is CertiK offering to be able to compete in the market and capture user attention in the long run?
Yeah, so I think I touched on this a bit earlier, but we're creating a ton of different tools and services to help secure the ecosystem even more. We're really never satisfied in what we're doing, and we're always looking for ways to improve, whether that be just expanding upon our current services or creating new ones, such as, I mean, as I mentioned, the KYC came out of the number of scams and everything we've seen. We're really just never satisfied with what we're doing, and we do, as I mentioned earlier, we do have the mission of securing the Web3 world, and that's not something you can just do audits with and achieve. It's kind of an ongoing battle, and we're always looking for ways to improve. But yeah, I mean, I think this question's more gauged towards a project users can buy into with a token, but I think that answers it nonetheless.
Uh, that's a great answer. So let's come to another question. As a firm working in the blockchain security, what do you think about more and more sophisticated attacks by hackers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So security essentially is sort of like a cat and mouse game, but it's our job to stay one step ahead. I mean, this is a new space and new technology for everybody, which makes it a little bit harder, especially for the security end. But what we can do is just continue to work and try to stay one step ahead of these hackers. That's why through our services, we try to create a closed security loop. So even if a hacker was to get a jump on a project or find a vulnerability, if a project has CertiK's whole suite of products, then they can kind of stay ahead of it. And even if it is exploited, the damage is minimized. But yeah, I mean, security in general it's a game of the good guys trying to stay ahead of the bad guys, and that's not always the easiest thing because as our co-founder, he had a interview with I think it was some media company, and he said it's hard for us because we have to secure every project. A hacker can just go through, look at one project, try to find something. If they don't, they move on to the next, and it's kind of a never-ending. They have limitless options of projects to look at, try to exploit, whereas we can only work with the select few that want to work with us. So it's definitely an interesting game. It's not an easy one, but through the team that we've hired and like as I mentioned earlier with the bug bounty, we have a team of ethical hackers who it's their job to kind of find these exploits before the bad guys do. And that's all we can do really is just try to stay one step ahead.
Thank you, Chase. So for another question, currently there are many similar blockchain security projects. How does CertiK intend to make its project more completed, and optimal for users to trust and feel more secure in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess this goes back to what I touched on earlier. It's just creating more services and tools to create that closed security loop. Yeah, again, I think this question's kind of more based for a project that a, a user can buy into with the token and stuff. But I mean, I guess just again, just creating those tools that keep us one step ahead of the bad guys, as I mentioned earlier again. But yeah, I don't really have an answer for this one, I guess.
Thank you. I think that's fine. And another user asked, what is the competitive advantage of CertiK compared to the other projects? What strengths do you think are different and would be appeal to users?
Yeah, so as far as our competitors, I think one thing that really sets us apart is the team that we have behind us. I mean, so I mention this frequently, but at CertiK, so whenever someone new gets hired, we get a welcome email with like their background, their education, all that stuff, and I'm always really surprised at the level of knowledge of the people we bring on. So that's our main advantage, I think, is just the team that we have and the knowledge that they have with them. And another reason um, is that we're always looking for ways to improve and build newer, better products. We give, I mean, I mentioned the knowledge our employees have, and then we give them the freedom and encourage them to think outside the box and kind of what ways can we improve. So that's not just a top-down thing at CertiK. We kind of open that idea up to everybody, and any security engineer who has a great idea on a new tool or a way to improve upon something, we're very open to those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, we're generally just we have a great team behind us, and we're always looking for ways to improve. We're never really settled with what we have.
Thank you, Chase. Uh, I think we're running out of time, so this is the last question for our AMA today. In addition to the audit of the projects, does CertiK have any plans in the future, such as developing more on the insurance part?
Yeah, so some users might be aware. We previously had Shentu Shield, which was basically an insurance alternative, but unfortunately, there's not too much I can speak on this. But all I can say is keep an eye on our socials and website for an update on this in the near future. There are plans, but nothing I can announce yet.
Okay, I think that answer also wraps up our AMA. Thank you for providing the community with great insights about CertiK. And before we end our AMA, do you have anything else to share with the community?
Yeah, I would just share with them to make sure to give us a follow on socials, go through and read our blogs, and figure out what users can do to kind of stay one step ahead of the bad guys in the space, and use the resources that we have out there to kind of give yourself the edge and know how to stay safe and don't so you don't fall victim to the next scam or rug pull and all that stuff. So make sure you use the resources we have to know what you can do on your end to protect yourself. And we will do the same on our end from the project point of view.
Okay, thank you, Chase and CertiK. I wish you and your team a successful auditing journey with CertiK. And I really appreciate anyone joining the AMA today. Hope we could join together again in the next event. Thank you and goodbye.